Hola forense, bienvenido al canal. En este video veremos las 5 confesiones de asesinos más perturbadoras. Frazier Glenn Miller fue un miembro de un grupo de supremacía blanca, ex líder del desaparecido Partido Patriota Blanco. Fue acusado de acabar con la vida de 3 personas en 2 locales judíos distintos en 2014. Fue arrestado y tuvo un proceso judicial que duró varios meses. Sin embargo, su caso cambió drásticamente en diciembre de ese mismo año, cuando Frazier soltó una confesión en la corte, tomando responsabilidad por sus crímenes. Se le dio por eso la pena de muerte, la cual se ejecutó en mayo del 2021.
Mr. Frazier does understand the nature of the proceedings and is capable of assisting counsel in his defense. So we will move forward at this point then.
74-year-old Frazier Glenn Cross was quiet during this part of the hearing, but then the judge set a preliminary hearing date for March, and the outbursts began.
Well, what about my speedy trial?
Cross is accused in the April attacks at the Jewish Community Center and at Village Shalom Retirement Community. 3 people were shot to death: Dr. William Corcoran, his grandson Reed Underwood, and Terry Lamano, who was visiting her mother at the retirement center. Cross is an avowed white supremacist, and at one point he was the leader of the Ku Klux Klan in North Carolina. As he was wheeled out of court today, he confessed to the shootings and said his reason was hate.
I attacked the Jewish center of Jews commit genocide against white people. I have a right. Jews to do what I did.
Este caso ya lo habíamos visto antes, pero créeme, su confesión vale la pena. Una madre de 35 años fue acusada de asesinar a 2 de sus hijos y luego meter sus cuerpos en un congelador. Esto a mitad de un juicio por su custodia, afirmando que no era una buena madre. En julio del 2015, ella fue acusada de torturar y golpear a su hijo de 9 años hasta la muerte, y también de asfixiar a su hija de 13. Luego de un año, ella admitió en la corte ser culpable de estos crímenes y fue condenada a cadena perpetua. Demos un vistazo al arrebato extremadamente emocional que ella tuvo en la corte, el cual la llevó a su condena.
In a lightning bolt of emotion, Michelle Blair admits to killing her 13-year-old daughter, Stoney Blair, because she believed the teen and her 9-year-old son, whom she's also accused of murdering, had been harming her youngest child. Blair is charged with their murders, but the trial that began today is about the state attempting to terminate Blair's parental rights to her 2 surviving children and terminate the rights of both fathers. Prosecutors say her dad knew there was abuse.
What happens when your kids come to visit you in 2005?
Sister gave him a bath, seen whips on her back.
Who's seen whips?
My sister.
Your sister. Did you see these whips?
She showed them to me.
Are these long red marks?
No, they was healed up by the time I seen them.
Healed up. But do they appear to be long, like lines?
No, it's like slashes.
Another one of Michelle Blair's outbursts came as an attorney for one of the fathers was addressing the court.
So I asked the court not to be so inflamed by the mother's actions as to place those on my client. The allegations against my client, Mr. Berry, are failure to protect and abandonment.
And never being there for his kids.
Mother,
She was always on sex sites, though,
Mother,
right?
Mother, listen to me.
I had to beg you to come see me. For real?
Mother, listen to me. You done, Mother? Listen to me. This is a civil case. It's not a criminal case. We can and we will do it without you.
I never tried to say I didn't. I did it, but that does not negate the fact that they were never there for their children. I had to struggle with them all the time. They were never there.
You get
Stephen,
your chance.
you know we had to beg you. Me, Stephen, all of us used to cry for you.
You're not going to be able to stand by there.
Come here.
There are rules.
Muchos ya conocen a Dennis Rader, el asesino BTK, letras correspondientes a atar, torturar y asesinar. Él fue responsable de acabar con las vidas de 10 personas entre el 74 y el 91. Este tipo, luego de cada asesinato, escribía cartas a la policía y agencias de noticias locales, donde se mofaba de sus crímenes y daba detalles precisos de cada asesinato. En 2004, luego de muchos años de estéril búsqueda, las cartas que había enviado impulsó nuevamente la investigación, lo que llevó a su arresto en 2005. Sorprendentemente, pocas personas han visto o escuchado su confesión en la corte, que lo llevó al veredicto que lo declaró culpable. El 27 de junio del 2005, Dennis Rader fue escuchado en televisión, reconociendo sus crímenes por primera vez, tomando responsabilidad de sus actos.
All right, Mr. Rader, I need to find out more information. On that particular day, the 15th day of January, 1974, can you tell me where you went to kill Mr. Joseph Otero?
I think it's 1834, Edgemore.
All right. Can you tell me approximately what time of day you went there?
Somewhere between 7 and 7:30.
This particular location, did you know these people?
No, that's no, that was part of my, I guess my what you call fantasy. These people were selected.
All right, so you were engaged in some kind of fantasy during this period of time?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, when you use the term fantasy, is this something you were doing for your personal pleasure?
Sexual fantasy, sir.
I see. So you went to this residence, and what occurred then?
Well, I had did some thinking on what I was going to do to either Mrs. Otero or Josephine, and basically broke into the house, or didn't break into the house, but when they came out of the house, I came in and confronted the family, and then we went from there.
All right. Had you planned this beforehand?
To some degree, yes. After I got in the house, I lost control of it, but it was, you know, in the back of my mind, I had some ideas what I was going to do, but I basically panicked that first day, so.
All right. When you went into the house, what happened then?
Well, I confronted the family, pulled the pistol, confronted Mr. Otero, and asked him to, you know, that I was there to, basically, I was wanted to get the car. I was hungry, food, I was wanted, and asked him to lie down in the living room. And at that time, I realized that wouldn't be a really good idea, so I finally, the dog was a real problem, so I asked Mr. Otero if he could get the dog out, so he had one of the kids put it out. And then I took him back to the bedroom.
You took who back to the bedroom?
The family, the bedroom, the 4 members.
All right, what happened then?
At that time, I tied him up.
While still holding him at gunpoint?
Well, in between tying and yes. Yeah.
All right, after you tied them up, what occurred?
Well, they started complaining about being tied up, and I re-loosened the bonds a couple of times. Tried to make Mr. Otero as comfortable as I could. Apparently had a cracked rib from a car accident, so I had him put a pillow down for his head. Had he put a, I think he's a Parker or a coat underneath him. They, you know, they talked to me about, you know, giving the car and whatever money. I guess they didn't have very much money. And there I realized that, you know, I didn't have a mask on or anything. They already could ID me, and made a decision to go ahead and put them down, I guess, or strangle them.
Este tipo, llamado Israel Keyes, admitió haber acabado con la vida de al menos 10 personas, enterrando a 3 de ellas en Washington y desapareciendo a las demás de una forma desconocida. Hasta el día de hoy no se conoce el número exacto de sus víctimas, debido a su meticulosa planeación de los asesinatos. En 2012 realizó una serie de entrevistas con el FBI, en las cuales reveló algunos detalles sobre sus crímenes, incluyendo dónde encontrar algunos cuerpos. Sin embargo, antes de que su caso pueda cerrarse y él pueda ser debidamente condenado, Israel acabó con su propia vida dentro de una celda. Veamos un pequeño clip de un documental que se emitió sobre Israel Keyes en 2012.
Back when I was smart, I would let them come to me. This remote area. Come go to a remote area that's not anywhere near where you live, that other people go to as well.
The police interrogation is in Anchorage, Alaska, where Keys was being held for the murder of 18-year-old barista Samantha Koenig, seen here putting her hands up the very moment a masked Keys pulls a gun on her. He zip ties her hands and leads her away from the coffee stand, telling police he killed her, then left to take a cruise out of New Orleans before asking her family for ransom. Gruesome as it is, Keys wasn't done talking. In fact, the man who matter-of-factly confessed to raping and murdering Koenig left investigators stunned by telling them he's a serial killer.
There is no one who knows me, or who has ever known me, who knows anything about me, really.
He was very meticulous, he was very organized, he definitely planned everything that he did.
Keys traveled the country from Alaska to Vermont, looking for people to kill totally at random.
I'm two different people, basically.
How long have you been two different people?
Long time. 14 years.
Keys said enough to start a massive investigation, but he didn't tell them everything. Sunday they found his body. He'd himself with a razor inside his jail cell. One final act of control.
Gary Ridgway, también conocido como The Green River Killer o el asesino del Río Verde, confesó en 2013 haber acabado con la vida de más de 80 mujeres, un número que doblaba las estimaciones de los investigadores de solo 40. Y el hecho de que tenga tantas víctimas lo convierte en el segundo asesino en serie más prolífico de Estados Unidos. Durante su sentencia, Gary solo fue acusado por su vinculación a 49 de estos crímenes. Aunque luego de su condena, donde él admitió abiertamente que había muchas más víctimas, el video que veremos a continuación es de una mujer que fue contratada por el FBI para ayudar a obtener su confesión. Veamos.
My strategy was to get him talking and to have him do most of the talking. How are you this morning?
Pretty good. Slept real good. A little toss and turning, but pretty good.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I would also sit very close to him so that I could maybe touch his elbow and say, Gary, tell me what it feels like.
The questioning goes on for weeks. Some sessions last for hours.
Turn him off and he will not talk. And your goal is to keep him talking.
And finally, something within Gary Ridgway cracks. Bit by bit, he starts talking.
I don't know that it started at an early age, but hurting the woman.
And he loved being able to talk, finally, after all these years. And in doing so, he kind of walked us down the path of all of his murders. At one point, Gary referred to himself as something like the lean, mean killing machine. And he was very efficient, like a machine.
Explain that process to me.
Let's say she's always in the car, driving down the road. So I whipped out my ID, and with my ID would be I'd put my finger over my driver's license to hide my name. Mm-hmm. But on the opposite side was pictures. And a picture of my son. They would know I was a probably normal person.
But you were really using your son as part of your ruse.
The girls would think Ridgway was a kind family man. They had no idea they were setting off with a serial killer.
And he would drive up to them, and sometimes he'd even have his son's toys in the front seat, and that would be a very effective ruse to convince these women that, hey, I can't be that serial killer. I've got my little boy's toys in the car. He was a very normal, kind of vanilla type looking person, and there was nothing that stood out about him. Not dangerous. He could have been anybody living next door. He was anybody living next door.